African Hearts for Peace series, Faultlines and Frontiers, Empirical Truths from the Horn of Africa and Red Sea region. Essay is series by Abebe Negash, and I am a truth seeker. What you are about to hear is not fiction, not propaganda, and not political marketing. It is the truth, plain and simple, drawn from history, recent events, and the lived reality of millions across the Horn of Africa. I present this essay in simple English so all can understand, from elders to youth, in the homeland and the diaspora. It is time to see clearly, to connect the dots, and to know what is really happening to Ethiopia and its neighbors. You see, Ethiopia, land of empires and new frontiers. Ethiopia is a land of ancient empires, from the kingdom of Damt and the Aksumite empires to the Abyssinian Christian kings who resisted colonialism. It is also the land of the Oromo people, the Cushitic-speaking majority, whose cultural renaissance is often symbolized in what is now called the Oromummaa project. This culture movement has both inspired pride and raised alarm, as it sometimes comes across as a political push tied to ethnic federalism, reshaping identity into ideology. The push for the sea. Ethiopia is a landlocked country. Since losing Eritrea in 1993, its dream of accessing the Red Sea has never died. In 2024, Ethiopia signed a Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) with the Somaliland for port access. This deal gave Somaliland potential recognition, which angered Somalia and triggered diplomatic tensions. The Red Sea isn't just water, it is Ethiopia's economic lifeline. It is trade route and its insurance for survival. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has described access to the sea as existential, but neighbors see this move as aggressive and expansionist. Eritrea, Somalia, even Egypt are watching closely. The situation is tense. One misstep and the region could fall into a wider war. Internal fires. Conflict in Oromia, Amhara, and Tigray. Ethiopia looks outward for sea access. Its internal wounds are bleeding. The civil war in Tigray from 2020 to 2022 killed hundreds of thousands. A peace deal was signed, but the scars remain. Amhara is now in open conflict with federal forces. Oromia is facing an insurgency by the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA. Each of these conflicts is tied to a deeper question. Who controls Ethiopia? Who defines its future? The federal government? The ethnic regions? Or outside powers with deep pockets and deeper agendas? So, there is foreign hands in the mix. The UAE and Turkey have supplied drones. China and Russia offer diplomatic and economic alliances. Iran builds ties while the US and EU quietly watch or support various actors through aid, security partnership, or pressure. Ethiopia is no longer just an African issue. It is a global chessboard. Let's take a look at the Kush and Abyssinian legacy here. Long before the colonial borders, The land we now call Ethiopia and Sudan was the heart of the Kushite kingdom. These ancient black African empires ruled Egypt for a time and left monuments in Murio and Napata. The Abyssinian Empire, which rules in the highlands, is part of this lineage. These were not poor, primitive states. They had writing, trade, military power, and spiritual systems. Today, that glory is replaced by division. Instead of unity, we have ethnicity. Instead of peace, we have political manipulation. And instead of leadership rooted in wisdom, we have a revolving door of foreign aligned elites. In conclusion, Ethiopia is the heart of Africa, but today it is a heart under pressure, pressured from within by unresolved identity politics and from without by geopolitical powers seeking to profit from chaos. If it collapses, the shock waves will not stop at its borders. Somalia, Sudan, Eritrea, South Sudan, Kenya, all the neighboring countries, all are linked. In this essay, I have laid out the facts as they are. You can close your eyes to them, but you cannot say you were never told. I am Abebe, and I return with part 2 of this truth-telling journey. We now focus on Sudan, a nation rich in history but torn by conflict. What is happening in Sudan today is not just a civil war. It is a complex struggle influenced by old grievances, military ambitions, tribal fault lines, and foreign intervention. Let us walk through the truth together. From kingdom to chaos. Sudan was once the center of the ancient kingdom of Kush, whose rulers even controlled Egypt for nearly a century. The pyramids of Meroe still stand as silent witnesses of this legacy. But after centuries of outside domination and internal division, Sudan became independent in 1959. Since then, coups, civil wars, and secession have dominated its story. In 2011, South Sudan broke away after decades of brutal conflict. But peace did not come. Instead, Sudan continued to be ruled by generals and strongmen, often backed by foreign powers. You see, the SAF-RSF war in April 2023, open war erupted between the Sudanese Armed Forces SAF and the Rapid Support Forces RSF. The SAF is led by General Abdul Fattah al-Burhan. The RSF is led by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hamditi. Once allies, they are now enemies, each trying to control Sudan's future. Civilians are caught in the middle. Cities have been destroyed, families displaced. Hunger and disease have followed. This is not a fight for democracy. It is a power struggle fed by arms, oil, and foreign agendas. Let's take a moment to talk about foreign powers. Fueling the fire. The UAE, United Arab Emirates, is said to support the RSF. Egypt and Eritrea lean towards the SAF. Saudi Arabia tries to mediate, but its interests lie in trade routes and Red Sea security. Iran and Turkey hover in the background. Israel, too, watches closely. Sudan's location and resource make it valuable to all. Reports suggest Eritrea is training militias to support SAF. At the same time, elements tied to Ethiopia's TPLF have been fighting alongside Sudan's government forces. The Horn of Africa's conflicts are spilling across borders. South Sudan, on the other hand, South Sudan in the Gambella spillover is also another important aspect to see. In the south, violence continues between the South Sudanese government forces and opposition groups. The White Army militia, loyal to Riek Machar, has clashed with rivals and displaced thousands. Many of those people crossed into Ethiopia's Gambella region, creating new tensions. Uganda has sent troops to South Sudan. Ethiopia and Kenya are drawn into the humanitarian crisis. What happens in Sudan never stays in Sudan. The region is tightly woven. In conclusion, Sudan is bleeding, not just from internal wounds, but from foreign blades. Each outside power has its interest: ports, pipelines, military bases, resources or influences. While leaders fight for power, the people starve for peace. If Africa does not stand up for Sudan, others will shape its destiny for profit. This is a sad truth, and this is why we must continue. Part 3: Somalia and Somaliland: Fractured Sovereignty and the Battle for Recognition. Again, this is Abebe, the truth seeker. In this third part, I bring you to the land of Somalia and Somaliland, two names tied to the same geography but pulling the different directions. This is a glory of dreams for statehood, deep scars from war, and a dangerous game of foreign alliances. One land, two realities. Somalia has faced more war and chaos since 1991, when its central government collapsed. It has been rebuilding ever since. But rebuilding in Somalia is not just about infrastructure. It is about identity, sovereignty, and legitimacy. A loss of statehood in Somalia is credited to United States invasion. In the northwest, the region of Somaliland declared independence in 1991. It has built its own government, parliament, and elections, but no country officially recognizes it. Still, it stands firm, and in 2024, a major shift occurred. The Memorandum of Understanding with Ethiopia. Signed this Memorandum of Understanding, Ethiopia signed Ethiopia signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Somaliland to get access to the Red Sea through Berbera Port. In return, Ethiopia would consider recognizing Somaliland as an independent country. Somalia saw this as a violation of its sovereignty. For Mogadishu, Somaliland is still part of the nation. Ethiopia's move was seen as a betrayal and revocation. The deal brought Somalia and Egypt closer together, while tensions rose across the region. Foreign players and proxy games are lingering. Somalia, like the rest of the Horn, is surrounded by actors with different interests. Egypt supports Somalia to pressure Ethiopia over the Nile. Turkey builds military and police facilities in Mogadishu and controls the newfound oil. The UAE supports Somaliland and also maintains ties with Puntland. Qatar funds various Islamic groups. The US continues to train counterterrorism forces there. In all of this, there is a shadow of Al-Shabaab. The extremist group Al-Shabaab remains active. It controls part of southern and central Somalia. It collects taxes, runs courts, and attacks both civilians and soldiers. The Ethiopian-Somaliland deal may further motivate Al-Shabaab, which sees foreign involvement as an enemy. See, without Ethiopia's involvement in Mogadishu, Somalia, there wouldn't be a Somalian government. Now they are at odds. Al-Shabaab also threatens Ethiopians' ambitions. If Ethiopia tries to go through Somali territory, the group could attack or sabotage its efforts. The checkpoint, Barbara and the Red Sea checkpoints. The Barbara port, now at the center of this storm, is located near the Bab el-Mandab Strait, one of the world's most important shipping lanes. Whoever controls Barbara has access to trade, power, and influence. That's why this deal is more than economics. It is about regional control. In conclusion, Somalia and Somaliland represent two futures. One wants unity under a fragile nation state. The other seeks recognition after decades of de facto independence. Both are caught in the larger game between Ethiopia, Egypt, and the Gulf powers. The people want peace. They want roads, schools, hospitals, and jobs. But leaders want power, influence, and alliances. The Horn of Africa is once again a place where foreign interests dance around fragile sovereignties. This is the truth, and this is why we must keep speaking it. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. Next, we move to part 4, Eritrea, the enigmatic power broker of the Red Sea. Again, my name is Abebe. I am a truth seeker. In this 4th chapter, we turn our gaze to Eritrea, a country small in size, yet powerful influence. It is a land known more for its secrecy than its speeches, more for its soldiers than its slogans. But behind its silence is a force shaping the Horn of Africa. This is Abebe for African Hearts for Peace series. Faultline, frontline, empirical truth from the Horn and Red Sea region. The essay is written by me, Abebe, a truth seeker, and these are available in books as well. In part 5, we would like to talk about South Sudan, a nation still in labor. In this 5th essay, I bring your attention to South Sudan, a country that was born with hope but is growing up in pain. The newest region on earth is still struggling to find peace, purpose, and unity. What was meant to be a fresh beginning has become a continuation of conflict, marked by tribal divisions, political mistrust, and foreign entanglement. The birth of a nation. South Sudan gained independence in 2011 after decades of civil war with Sudan. The people voted overwhelmingly to secede. and the world cheered, yet the peace was short-lived. By 2013, civil war broke out between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and those supporting Vice President Riek Machar. The fighting spilled along ethnic lines, mainly between Dinka and Nuer communities. Tens of thousands were killed, millions were displaced. The return of the White Army. See, the White Army, a tribal militia associated with the Nuer, rose again. This force is loyal to Machar and has fought government troops in many parts of the country. The latest clashes occurred in places like Nasir County, near the Ethiopian border. These militias are not regular armies. They are made up of civilians, often young boys, called to arms by tradition and trauma. Their involvement has deepened the conflict and complicated peace talks. With this, I bring you Gambela region, Ethiopia's concern. The conflict spills over into Ethiopia. Thousands of South Sudanese have crossed the border into Gambela region. Ethiopian government did nothing. It would seem that Ethiopian government reluctance in repelling them is setting them up for the evidence for the inevitable war Ethiopia has planned for South Sudan. The Ethiopian government fears instability in Gambela, and that could ignite local ethnic tensions too, which later on we discuss also about Kush Empire. This is how one war becomes another's problem. No border can stop suffering when guns are in one hand and hunger in the other. There are foreign troops and regional players in all of this. Uganda has sent troops into South Sudan to support the government. Kenya and Ethiopia try to mediate peace. Egypt and the Gulf states have taken interest in oil deals and strategic influence. Even distant powers watch closely. What started as an African problem is now a global concern. Oil, minerals, and location have made South Sudan important to outsiders, but its people remain poor, displaced, and hungry. There is a fragile peace and a long road. Peace agreements have been signed more than once. Ceasefires announced, only to be broken days later. Leaders from unity governments but do not trust each other. Elections are postponed. Promises are made then forgotten. The people suffer the consequences. Refugee camps overflow. Girls and boys grow up without schools, without homes, without peace. In conclusion, South Sudan is a nation still in labor. Born with high hopes, it is now fighting to survive. The dream of independence was real, but so is the nightmare of division. Peace will not come from paper agreements alone, folks, brothers and sisters. It must be from justice, inclusion, and accountability. It must come from the people, not just the politicians. This is the truth I have seen and heard. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. Part 6 is Djibouti, the silent keystone of the Red Sea. Again, this is Abebe, a truth seeker. In this sixth part of our journey, we arrive in Djibouti, a small country with a powerful presence. It might not make headlines often, but its position and choices affect the entire Horn of Africa. It is a keystone, quietly holding up a fragile arch of military power, migration, and maritime trade. So location is power in Djibouti, because Djibouti sits at one of the most strategic points on earth, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This narrow waterway links the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and carries much of the world's oil and cargo. Whoever controls this passage controls a part of global trade. So Djibouti has used its location wisely. It hosts military bases from the United States, China, France, Japan, and others. This has brought money, roads, and some development, but it has also raised questions. Who really controls Djibouti? Foreign militarization. No other African country hosts as many foreign military bases as Djibouti. The US has Camp Lemonnier, its largest base in Africa. China built its first overseas base there. France, the former colonizer, remains deeply involved. Even Saudi Arabia has shown interest. These bases bring income, but they also limit sovereignty. If conflict breaks out nearby, Djibouti could be dragged in, not by choice, but by presence. Here is the port politics and Ethiopia's independence and Ethiopia's dependence. For now, Djibouti remains Ethiopia's main trade outlet. Since Ethiopia lost access to the sea in 1993 and Djibouti herself was deported from Ethiopia in 1970, it has depended on Djibouti for 90% of its imports and exports. But relations are not always smooth either. After separation, fragmentation of Ethiopia continues. So in recent years, tensions rose over fees, infrastructure delays, and migration issues. Ethiopia's 2024 deal with Somaliland for port access signals its desire to reduce dependence on Djibouti. Djibouti, in return, cracked down on undocumented migrants, many of whom were Ethiopians. There is huge suffering of migrants over there. Some drown in the sea. Internal pressure and social strains are also there. Djibouti is small, but its people face rising costs and unemployment. The presence of foreign soldiers brings jobs, but not enough. Young people look across the sea to Yemen, Saudi Arabia, or Europe. Meanwhile, dissent is often silenced. Critics of the government face harassment or arrest. Elections are held, but power rarely changes hands. So there is a fragile balance. Djibouti balances between power, the West and China, Ethiopia and Somalia, profit and pressure. It is quiet on the outside, but complex on the inside. One wrong move and the balance could tip. If a regional war erupts between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somalia, Djibouti may not stay neutral. Its bases could be used. Its ports could be blockaded. Its people could suffer. In conclusion, Djibouti may seem like a minor actor, but in truth, it is a silent keystone, holding up alliances, trade, and fragile peace. Its silence should not be mistaken for weakness, nor should its strength come at the cost of sovereignty or dignity. We must watch Djibouti closely, not only for what it does, but for what others do through it. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. Next, we continue to part 7, External Actors, Masters of the Proxy Chessboard, But before that, I have a little bit of rearrangement. This is African Hearts for Peace series, titled as Faultlines and Frontiers, Empirical Truths from the Horn and the Red Sea region. Essay series is by me, Abebe, who is always a truth seeker. Oromummaa in this part. Oromummaa and the Red Sea ambitions between identity and expansion. Recall, we spoke of Kush in other part series here and there. Oromummaa. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. In this seventh part, we turn to a deeper and more internal layer of the Horn's crisis, the rise of Oromummaa and its relation to Ethiopia's Red Sea ambitions. We also explore how this movement, its interactions, and its critics tie into wider geopolitical shifts, including rumors of Israel's request to establish a military base in Somaliland and the growing shadow of the Iran-Israeli war. Oromummaa, a movement or a mandate. Oromummaa is a term rich with meaning for the Oromo people, Ethiopia's largest ethnic group. It encompasses culture, language, history, and identity. To some, it is a liberation movement, a long overdue awakening to centuries of marginalization. To others, it is a political project aimed at reshaping the Ethiopian state from within, or even breaking it apart. Some see Oromummaa as a cultural revival, restoring language, customs, and historical memory. Others say it has become political, pushing for autonomy, self-rule, and even an independent Oromia. Still, others go further, framing Oromummaa as the seed of a new empire, sometimes called the Kush Empire, which envisions Oromo leadership reaching towards the Red Sea. And some in the government officials even say they will celebrate Geta at Red Sea. So what is the Kush Empire narrative here? Talk of a revived Kush Empire led by Oromo elites echoes in some political circles. It draws an ancient history when Cushitic-speaking people ruled powerful states in what is now Sudan and Ethiopia. But today, the idea stirs fear more than pride. Neighboring states, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, and Kenya, watch carefully. The potential redrawing of colonial borders raises the alarm. Critics worry this ambition could lead to future conflicts, regional fragmentation, or even ethnic cleansing disguised as self-determination. And as such, there is violence as we write this and human rights concerns. The Oromia region has seen violence and accusations of ethnic cleansing, especially against the Amhara community and non-Oromos. Human rights groups have documented atrocities by both the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, and pro-government forces. Villages have burned, families have fled, accountability is rare. His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, himself Oromo, has walked a fine line here. His pan-Ethiopian rhetoric clashes with ethnic federalism. His vision of unity is challenged by Oromo nationalists and Amhara traditionalists alike. Tigrayans, and the whole region. The Red Sea ambition and Somaliland role adds another mix to this. In early 2024, Ethiopia signed a deal with Somaliland to access the Red Sea through Berbera, which we discussed earlier. The move shocked the region. Somalia rejected it. Egypt and Eritrea raised concerns, yet Ethiopia called it vital, essential. Was this deal driven by geopolitical need alone, or is there also an ideological engine behind it? One rooted in Oromummaa and its wider aspirations? If the Kush vision includes access to the sea, then the Somaliland deal is more than a port agreement. It is a declaration. Just for a moment, if we look at Israel, Iran, and the whole new battlefield, because this happened just recently, as of 2025, the war between Israel and Iran has begun to intensify, drawing global attention. New reports suggest Israel has approached Somaliland about establishing a military base so as to control the Yemeni Houthi rebels, who are backed by Iran. If true, this would place the region at the center of global conflict. Iran has ties to the Houthis in the Yemen, who already target Red Sea shipping lanes. Israel's growing presence in the Horn could ignite more confrontation. Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, all may be pulled into a larger war they did not start. The Horn is no longer just about Africa. It is about global power. China, the US, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Israel. And within this game, internal ideologies like Oromummaa become geopolitical factors. So in conclusion, Oromummaa began as an expression of identity, resistance, and justice. But identity, when mixed with politics and external alliances, become a powerful force, one that can heal or divide, uplift or destroy. The Red Sea ambitions of Ethiopia, driven by both survival and vision, are unfolding alongside global rivalries. The Horn is now the epicenter of an ideological storm, historical reckoning, and geopolitical struggle. This is the truth as we see it. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. Next is part 8, external actors, masters of the proxy chessboard. The African Hearts for Peace series, Faultlines and Frontiers, Empirical Truths from the Horn and Red Sea region. Essay series is by me, Abebe. I consider myself a truth seeker. So we discussed in part 5 South Sudan, a nation still in labor, Djibouti, the silent keystone of the sea, part 7 Oromummaa and the Red Sea ambitions between identity and expansion. In this 7th part, we turn to a deeper and more internal layer of the Horn's crisis, the rise of Oromummaa and its relation. So, give me a moment. In part 8 series, we're looking at external actors, masters of the proxy chessboard. In this final chapter of the series, we shift our attention to those actors outside the Horn who nonetheless shape its future. The external powers whose money, weapons, AI-enabled weapons we're talking here, alliances ever shifting here and there, and ambitions fuel the fires of war and peace in the region. These are not distant observers. brothers and sisters. They are direct participants, master of a deadly proxy chessboard. United States and Western allies. The US maintains its largest African military base in Djibouti, Camp La Monnier, and supports counterterrorism missions across the Horn. Officially, it promotes democracy and regional stability. Unofficially, it supports allies and interests, even when they conflict with local needs. The EU and UK also provide aid, security training, and diplomatic engagement, but their response often follow economic or strategic goals, not justice. They talk of peace, but tolerate regimes accused of war crimes. Then you have China and Russia. China's role is economic and strategic. It builds infrastructure, ports, roads, railways, but also secure influences through debt and investment. Its military base in Djibouti signals a permanent interest in Red Sea security. Russia, on the other hand, seeks access to Port Sudan and allies with anti-Western forces. It provides weapons, security contractors, and sometimes diplomatic cover. Its moves echo Cold War era positioning. And then there you have Middle Eastern powers, petrodollars, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, United Arab Emirates, back different factions. The United Arab Emirates supports the Rapid Support Force in Sudan and builds ports in Somaliland and Eritrea. Saudi Arabia seeks regional leadership and control of trade routes and does pretty much the same thing as the UAE does. Qatar and Turkey align with Islamist-leaning forces, especially in Somalia. Iran backs the Houthis in Yemen and seeks influence across the Red Sea corridor. The region has become an extension of Gulf rivalries. Then you have Israel and Iran, the new confrontation. In 2025, open conflict between Israel and Iran has erupted. Iran uses the Houthis to strike a shipping and maritime routes. Israel seeks new military outposts, reportedly negotiating with Somaliland or a base. If established, this could pull the Horn into a broader Middle East war. Israel also aligns with Ethiopia and Egypt on security concerns. Iran counters with its support for armed movements and naval harassment. Even recently, it signed a military cooperative deal with Ethiopian Prime Minister. This global conflict is now washing up on African shores. Let's take a look at the price of proxy. What do these powers leave behind? Broken states, armed factions, debt burdens, and displaced civilians. The people of the Horn, Ethiopians, Sudanese, Somalis, Eritreans, and so on, become pawns. Their future traded for ports, alliances, and natural resources. Aid becomes leverage. Weapons become diplomacy. Peace becomes conditional. In conclusion, the Horn of Africa has become a grand chessboard. But unlike the game, there are no rules here. Just power, strategy, and sacrifice. If Africa is to rise, it must break free from the web of manipulation. It must reclaim its agency, speak its truth, and end the silence. This is what I see. This is what I know. I am Abebe, a truth seeker, and this concludes the first part of our journey through the fire and the future of the Horn of Africa. And next, I would like to bring some reflection. For African Hearts for Peace and the Struggle for Truth. Both African Hearts for Peace and Ethiopian Hearts for Peace struggling. Again, I want to introduce myself. I am Abebe, a truth seeker. After completing this 8-part journey through the fires of the Horn of Africa and the contested waters of the Red Sea, I must pause and reflect. This reflection is not just mine. It is the soul of African Hearts for Peace and Ethiopian Hearts for Peace initiatives. Born out of necessity, frustration, and an unyielding desire for unity and justice. See, the wave of deception and fragmentation exists. We are trying to bring truth to a region engulfed by layers of lies. The conflicts we examined are not separate. They are interconnected waves. Each war, each narrative, each alliance is like a thread, like a spider web. Together, they form a web that traps the truth. So filtering truth from these webs is like walking through fog with a broken compass and sophos. The lies are polished. The deceptions are deep. Even victims of justice sometimes wear the mask of the perpetrator. Propaganda is weaponized. Silence is rewarded. And the truth is dismissed as dangerous. So you can see there is a difficulty of dialogue. Even if we extract the truth, painful, buried, and raw, another challenge awaits. Bringing people together to talk. Dialogue does not happen automatically. People must feel safe. They must feel heard. They must believe justice is possible. But right now, every guilty elite runs from justice. They flee to foreign countries, claim victimhood, or hide behind power. And they do not stop there. They still use YouTube and other social media. Accountability becomes a myth. Peace becomes a slogan. Dialogue dies before it begins. The Horn of Africa and the Red Sea at large is a region at war, a people in exhaustion. War is happening everywhere. Sudan is on fire, Ethiopia bleeds in silence, Somalia endures endless instability, Eritrea remains hardened, South Sudan cries for relief, Djibouti watches silently as foreign boots dig into its soil, and sometimes Kenya is being drawn into this. Remember, it has its own. In this climate, telling fighters to stop is almost impossible. Many of them believe their fight is existential, rightly so. To them, survival means victory. Peace feels like surrender. And if that belief holds even partly, then the cycle will continue. People will keep dying. Armies will keep growing. Foreign powers will keep profiting. And truth will keep fading. Not to confuse the factors with our mission. Our mission is difficult, but not impossible. African Hearts for Peace and Ethiopian Hearts for Peace are not perfect initiatives. We don't have followers. We don't have enough budget to send out the wave of peace initiatives. We are walking against the wind. But we carry something stronger than slogans. We carry intent, clarity, and love for the people. We know that peace without justice is silence, and justice without truth is a lie. So we fight, not with bullets, but with words, not with lies, but with light, not to win, but to heal. Let this document be a signal, a beginning, a witness to what we know, what we have seen, and what we must change. Again, I'm Abebe, a truth seeker, and this is not the end. It is a voice before the rising. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day or evening.